Pharmacy India. So we are here to discuss about some questions related to general pharmacology, and this lecture would be dedicated for the preparation of MRB pharmacist examination. This is lecture number or class number 4, and we are going to discuss top 30 questions of general pharmacology topic of subject pharmacology. These 30 questions will be explained with the detailed explanation. So I would request you to kindly or patiently listen each and every point discussed here, because each and every point is very helpful for your preparation. So let's start with our questions. Before that, let's see some important information, such as if you have not downloaded Pharmacy India mobile app or not visited Pharmacy India mobile app, kindly visit once Pharmacy India mobile app, because this app consists of the test series and few courses. These test series might be helpful for your preparation. Some of these test series are free of cost, and this free of cost test series might be very much beneficial for your preparation. Next, we also have the courses. Some of these courses might be beneficial for your preparation. So I would recommend you to kindly visit Pharmacy India mobile app. Now we have WhatsApp as well as Telegram links, which you can join from the link provided in the description box. The lecture of this PDF will be provided through the Telegram. So kindly join WhatsApp as well as Telegram group. Now, Mission Pharmacist book. Mission Pharmacist book is the India most demanding book. This book consists of 30-year previous MCQs and also consists additionally 5 practice model paper. This book you can order through Flipkart on cash on delivery basis, or you can contact the given number, as well as you can also order this book through Pharmacy India mobile app. Another book is Non-Pharma Kit. This book consists of reasoning, aptitude, GK, GS, and 5,000 plus MCQs are included in this book. This book also you can order through various means, such as through Flipkart, through the contact number given below, as well as through the link given in the description box. So let's start with the first question. Our first question is, which of the following is an example of enteral route of drug administration? The question has been asked to us that among the following, we have to find out which of the following has the enteral route, is the example of enteral route of drug administration. Is it intravenous, sublingual, oral, or intramuscular? So it is clear that enteral route includes that route that has the GIT. And oral route is an example of enteral route of drug administration. So our answer is option number C, that is oral. Intravenous and intramuscular comes under parenteral route. Parenteral route. Although sublingual route consists of mouth, but it does not consist of whole GIT, therefore it is not an enteral route of drug administration. Let's move to its explanation. Intravenous. Intravenous is a parenteral route and it bypasses the digestive system. It does not include, this route does not include GIT or gastrointestinal tract as a movement of drug, we can say. Sublingual, it includes mouth, but it is not a enteral route. It is not an enteral route, because when the drug is administered in the mouth through the sublingual cavity, it gets absorbed directly into the bloodstream. It does not enters into the digestive system. Option C is correct, that is oral, because it includes all digestive system, such as all the gastrointestinal tract for the drug, for its absorption and ingestion. Intramuscular is also a parenteral route of administration, and it bypasses the GIT. Next question is question number 2. Which route provide the fastest onset of action? Among the following, you have to find out which of the following route provides the fastest onset of action. Is it intravenous, oral, subcutaneous, or transdermal? You have to remember this each and every time this question appears in the examination, that parenteral route is faster, shows faster onset of action as compared to enteral route. And in parenteral, IV, intravenous, is the fastest route of administration. Hence, IV is the fastest route of administration, no matter we are comparing with parenteral or enteral. IV is the fastest route of administration. Therefore, the answer is option number A, intravenous. Intravenous, fastest route because the drug is directly administered into the bloodstream. Intravenous, what we do, we directly inject the drug into the systemic circulation. Therefore, no time is wasted in the drug for its absorption. As well as the bioavailability of intravenous is 100%. Bioavailability of intravenous is 100%. Okay, is it clear? Now let's move to next option, oral. Oral is the slowest. Oral is the slowest because the drug takes time for absorbing through the digestive system. As well as many of the drug, much percentage of the drug gets metabolized as well. Next, subcutaneous. Absorption is slower. In subcutaneous, absorption is comparatively slower as compared to intravenous. I have mentioned earlier in the previous question that parenteral route is much faster. Parenteral route has much faster onset of action as compared to enteral route, and in parenteral, IV is the fastest. Similarly, parenteral route has parenteral route rate of absorption. Parenteral route rate of absorption is higher as compared to oral. And in parenteral, 100% absorption is seen in IV, and rest is comparatively lesser. Okay. Now let's move to next question. Question number 3. Which route of administration avoids the first pass metabolism? Among which of the following route of administration would avoid the first pass metabolism? First pass metabolism, you have to remember, when the first pass metabolism comes, this means the drug gets wasted. Wasted. We can say that the drug gets wasted. Okay. Now, if the first pass metabolism is higher, first pass metabolism higher means wastage of drug is higher. Wastage of drug is higher. That means in systemic circulation, the amount or concentration of drug gets reduced. Concentration of drug in systemic circulation is less. So we have to find out the route of administration which avoids or which completely bypasses the first pass metabolism. Remember, it is always intravenous which bypasses completely the first pass metabolism. Oral undergoes first pass metabolism highest first pass metabolism occurs through oral route of administration, and first pass metabolism always occurs in liver. Intravenous, it completely bypasses the first pass metabolism as the drug is injected into the systemic circulation directly. Rectal, it bypasses the first pass metabolism, no doubt, but in partial amount. Partially, it bypasses first pass metabolism, not completely. Sublingual, this also avoid first pass metabolism, but IV completely bypasses it. Now let's move to next question. Question number 4. Which of the following is a parenteral route of drug administration? Among the following, which of the following is a parenteral route of drug administration? Is it buccal? Is it intramuscular? Is it oral? Or is it sublingual? So it is option number B, that is parenteral. Buccal is a part of enteral route of administration. Oral, similarly, it is a part of enteral route of administration. Sublingual, although it includes the mouth, but it is not an enteral route of administration. Neither it is a parenteral route of drug administration. Parenteral route of drug administration includes intravenous, subcutaneous, subdermal, dermal, intramuscular. These are the parenteral route of drug administration. Okay, buccal is a mucosal route, but it is not a parenteral. Intramuscular, it bypasses the digestive system and it is injected directly into the muscles. Oral route, it involves the GIT and sublingual mucosal route, but it is not a parenteral route. Next, question number 5. In transdermal, The transdermal route is best suited for which type of drug? Transdermal route is suited for which type of drug? Water soluble drug, lipophilic drug, larger molecular weight drug, or drug with extensive first pass metabolism. So the answer is lipophilic drug. Why? Because transdermal route. These are suppose this is our skin and transdermal patch has been attached in our skin. So the drug is present in this transdermal patch. It has to move through the skin and gets absorbed into the blood stream. So for passing the drug from the skin and entering into the bloodstream, it has to pass through a lipophilic membrane, that is skin. Lipophilic. So the drug should have the property of being lipid soluble. Lipid soluble, that means that drug that is soluble in lipid, that would only pass through the skin membrane. Okay, so the drug should be lipophilic in nature. Water soluble drug do not pass through lipid rich skin easily, because like dissolves like, lipid membrane would only dissolve lipid drugs, not water soluble drugs. Okay, is it clear? Now let's see the next question. So what does our next question says? Our next question is, which of the following route is commonly used for insulin administration? Among the following, which of the following route of administration is used for administrating insulin? Is it option A, that is intravenous, option B subcutaneous, intramuscular, or sublingual? Option number B is correct. Subcutaneous. Although all of these three are parenteral route, and among them, subcutaneous route has been used for administrating insulin into the body. So let's see its explanation. Option number A, what it says, intravenous. Insulin is not commonly given intravenous except in emergency condition. Although insulin is given intravenous only in case of emergency, but not all the time. Okay. Next is subcutaneous. Intravenous injection is always given, or a maximum time it has been preferred that intravenous injection will be given through subcutaneous route. Subcutaneous means under the skin, under the skin surface. So from here, the absorption of insulin is very steady. In intramuscular is not preferred, or not preferred route for administrating of insulin. Also the sublingual is not, as insulin does not get absorbed through sublingual route of administration, therefore insulin is not given through sublingual route. Okay, let's move towards our next question, that is question number 7. Which statement is true about the inhalational route? Okay, which of the following is true about inhalational route? Option number A, it has slow onset of action. It primarily delivers drug for systemic effect. It provides rapid drug absorption, and it is mainly used for hydrophilic drugs. Correct statement is option number C, that it provides rapid drug absorption. Inhalational route provides rapid drug absorption as it has the larger surface area and rich blood supply. Inhalational route, through inhalational, if the drug is absorbed, if drug is absorbed, that means this is because the inhalational route have the larger surface area. Surface area, if it increases, remember, wherever surface area will increase, the absorption will increase. Okay, if absorption, or vice versa, if absorption increases, that means there might be possibility that surface area gets increased. Okay, so in this question it has been asked that inhalational route provides rapid drug absorption because it has the larger surface area, and as the blood supply is through this area is very much, so therefore the drug would get absorbed at the faster rate and would wash up simultaneously. Okay, let's move to next question. Question number 8. Which of the following is an advantage of rectal administration? Among the following, you have to identify the advantage of rectal administration. Complete avoidance of first pass metabolism, suitable for unconscious patient, faster onset of action than intravenous administration, is suitable for all types of drug. Answer is Option number B, that is suitable for unconscious patient. As you know, through rectal route, we can administer the drug to the unconscious patient also. It does not completely bypasses the first pass metabolism, but partially it bypasses the first pass metabolism. For complete avoidance, we need to go to intravenous route of administration. Faster than intravenous administration. No, intravenous administration is the fastest route of administration. Okay, now let's move to our next question. Question number 9. Which of the following active drug is metabolized into active metabolite called nortriptyline? You have to identify the active drug, an active drug that gets metabolized into active metabolite. See my explanation, like active drug. This active drug has to be converted into active metabolite so as to show its function. So you have to identify active drug with active metabolite is nortriptyline. Okay, for this answer is option number B, that is amitriptyline. Amitriptyline is the active drug that gets metabolized into nortriptyline. Amitriptyline is the drug that gets metabolized into nortriptyline, and this nortriptyline is the active metabolite. Simultaneously, I have also given the active metabolite and the active drug of the various options, such as in first option, option number A, imipramine. Imipramine gets metabolized into desipramine. Imipramine gets metabolized into desipramine. Simultaneously, if we see option number C, that is diazepam, diazepam gets metabolized into desmethyl diazepam. Procanamide gets metabolized into noracetyl procanamide. These are the various options which was given apart from the correct option. Next, let's move to next question. Next question wants us to find out among these drugs which has been converted into active metabolite, digoxin. Digoxin is the active metabolite. Active metabolite. We have to find out the active drug. Is it digitoxin? Is it losartan? Is it spironolactone? Yeah, or it is allopurinol. So the option number A is correct. That is digitoxin. From its name, it was clear that digitoxin gets converted into active metabolite known as digoxin. Let's see what are the other metabolites or active metabolites in which losartan gets converted. Losartan gets metabolized into E3174. Okay. Now next option is spironolactone. Spironolactone gets converted into candrenone, and this candrenone act as an aldosterone antagonist. This spironolactone gets metabolized into cadrenone, and this cadrenone act as a aldosterone antagonist. Allopurinol gets metabolized into alloxanthine, and this alloxanthine is the active metabolite. This alloxanthine acts as the active metabolite. Therefore, you have to learn which among the following is the active drug and what are their active metabolites. Okay, next, which of the following statement is true regarding the metabolism of codeine? You have to find out the true statement you have to find out the true statement regarding the metabolism of codeine. So is codeine, option number A is codeine is metabolite into desipramine. No, this option is not correct. What does option B says? Codeine is an active metabolite and its metabolite is inactive. Sorry, codeine is an active drug and its metabolite is inactive. Option number C, codeine is metabolized into morphine. Yeah, option D, that is codeine undergoes metabolism to produce alloxanthine. Which among the following is true? Option number C is true. Codeine is metabolized into morphine. Codeine is the active drug. It gets converted into morphine, which is its metabolite and is active. Codeine gets converted into desipramine. No. Imipramine gets metabolized into desipramine. This is the correct conversion. Imipramine, I have also mentioned this into In previous question, imipramine gets converted into decipramine. Decipramine. Imipramine gets converted into decipramine. Similarly, codeine is metabolized into morphine. Codeine is the inactive form and its metabolite is active. Remember, codeine is the active drug which is in inactive form, but when it gets converted into morphine, this is the active metabolite. Okay, now let's move to next question. Which among the following product is converted into active form called epinephrine? Okay, prodrug. Which of the following prodrug is converted into active form called epinephrine? Option number B is correct. Depivifrine. Okay. Enalapril gets converted or metabolized into enalaprilate. So this enalaprilate is a active ACE inhibitor. This metabolite is the active metabolite and it acts as an ACE inhibitor. Dipivifrine is the correct answer, and as it is converted into epinephrine, it gets converted into epinephrine, and this epinephrine is the active metabolite and mainly used for glaucoma treatment. Okay, similarly, I have also mentioned various other active drugs and its metabolite, which was mentioned in the questions. Option. Now, next question. Which prodrug is used to treat inflammatory bowel disease and is converted into 5-aminosalicylic acid? This was the simplest question because here it has been mentioned 5-aminosalicylic acid and you have to answer it accordingly. Option number A is correct, that is sulfasalazine, where it has been mentioned that a drug is converted into 5-aminosalicylic acid. The answer automatically comes is sulfasalazine. Sulfasalazine gets converted into 5-aminosalicylic acid. This 5-aminosalicylic acid has been used as ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. And also we can say that inflammatory bowel disease, it is used in inflammatory bowel disease. Option number B, what it was given is becampicillin. It gets converted into ampicillin. Becampicillin gets converted into ampicillin, and antibiotic. This ampicillin is an antibiotic and it is not used in inflammatory bowel disease. Next is option C, cyclophosphamide. Cyclophosphamide gets converted into aldophosphamide. Or you can say that it is a phosphoramide mustard. This metabolite, this aldophosphamide, is used as an anti-cancerous drug. Okay, because it has an anti-cancerous property. Next is fluorouracil. Fluorouracil gets converted into fluorouridine monophosphate, and this fluorouridine monophosphate is a chemotherapeutic drug. Therefore, the answer goes is option number A, sulfasalazine, because this is the drug that has been used in inflammatory bowel disease. Rest all the three is not used in inflammatory bowel disease. Okay, now the next question is question number 14. Which of the following statement is true regarding the metabolism of enalapril? Enalapril, you have to find out the correct statement regarding the metabolism of enalapril. Is enalapril metabolized into epinephrine, or enalapril is a prodrug that has been converted into enalaprilate? That is correct, I guess. So option number B is correct. Enalapril. Enalapril is a prodrug. After its administration, it gets converted into its active metabolite, that is enalaprilate. Okay. Now, enalapril is metabolized into epinephrine? No. Enalaprine is not converted into epinephrine. Depivifrine gets converted into epinephrine. Enalapril is a prodrug which gets converted into its active metabolite, that is known as enalaprilate, and this enalaprilate is used, it has the ACE inhibitor property. Okay, and this conversion takes place in liver. Okay, let's move to next question, question number 15. Which of the following drugs undergo high first pass metabolism and requires a high oral dose. Among the following drug, which of the following has high first pass metabolism and requires a high oral dose? Is it diazepam, verapamil, isoprenaline, or aspirin? So option number B is correct. That is verapamil. Verapamil goes the high first pass metabolism, and this verapamil has been is administered through oral administration route. Okay, desipramine, it undergoes low first pass metabolism, and next is next is verapamil. So students, kindly comment what is the mechanism of action of verapamil. Which blocker it is. Is it a calcium, potassium, sodium, or which type of blocker? Okay. So next, verapamil, next what you have to learn is verapamil has the high first pass metabolism and requires high oral dose because it undergoes high first pass metabolism. So that much drug, high amount of drug gets wasted. To maintain it into the systemic circulation, an appropriate amount of drug into systemic circulation, you need to administer high oral dose to the patient. So let me explain you once. Like if 100 gram of drug has been administered, for example, and as it has high first pass metabolism, 80% of drugs, 80% or 80 grams get first pass metabolism, goes through first pass metabolism. That means indirectly it has been got wasted. It has been wasted. So only 20%, 20 gram of drug comes to systemic circulation and shows its effect. So to maintain it to its appropriate level, we need to give it in a higher dose. Okay, so that's why it has been written that if a drug has gone through high first pass metabolism, then those drugs has to be given in a higher oral dose. Okay, next was option is isoprenaline. Isoprenaline is not given orally. First option, here we see that we need to find out any option in which oral dose was given, and isoprenaline is not given in the oral form. Therefore, this option is wrong. Option number 4, what it is aspirin. Aspirin, it undergoes intermediate first pass metabolism. Okay, now let's go to next question. Which of the following drug has low first pass metabolism and is extremely available in systemic circulation when given orally? As it has low first pass metabolism, so maximum drugs gets absorbed and comes into systemic circulation. If it has been mentioned that it goes low first pass metabolism, then that means that this drug gets wasted in lower amount. So maximum drug reaches to the systemic circulation. Students, you have to remember that if a drug goes high first pass metabolism, that means that drug gets maximum amount of that drug gets wasted. So if first pass metabolism is high, that means wastage of drug is high. Therefore, simultaneously systemic circulation, the drug that reaches into systemic circulation also decreases. If first pass metabolism increases, systemic drug gets decreased. And if we see that if first pass metabolism is low, wastage is low, systemic drug gets increased. This is a flow chart. Here what it is asking is that if low first pass metabolism is there, the drug would be available in systemic circulation when given orally. So you have to find out which among the following drug has this property. Propranolol, phenobarbital, lidocaine, pethidine. So option number B is correct. Phenobarbital. Phenobarbital has low first pass metabolism, so lower amount of drug gets wastage and maximum drug reaches into the systemic circulation. If we see about the fourth option, that is pethidine, pethidine undergoes maximum first pass metabolism. Therefore, maximum first pass metabolism, therefore maximum amount of drug gets wasted. Therefore, to maintain a certain amount of drug, certain percentage of drug into the systemic circulation, you have to administer higher oral dose of drug. Let's move to next question. Next question is, which of the following drug is not given orally due to high first pass metabolism? As among the four drugs mentioned in various option, you have to find out which of the following drug is not given orally, because it has the high first pass metabolism. Maximum to maximum amount of drugs are getting wasted. So there is no meaning to give this drug through oral route. So which among the following is correct option? Option number A, isoprenaline is correct. Isoprenaline, we never give this drug through oral route of administration because it has the highest first pass metabolism. Next option, next question, which drug has longest half-life among the following? Longest half-life, students. Half-life, what does it mean? It is the time in which 50% of the drug administered gets excreted out. The time through which 50% of the drugs administered get excreted out. So the question demands us to find out the drug which have the highest half-life. Okay, highest half-life. Is it aspirin, digoxin, phenobarbital, or penicillin G? Option number C is correct. Phenobarbital. Phenobarbital is the correct answer. Aspirin has the half-life of 4 hours. That means within 4 hours, 50% of the aspirin gets excreted out. That is shorter half-life. Digoxin half-life is 40 hours, longer than aspirin, as not the longest. This is not the longest, but it is longer as when we compare it with aspirin. Phenobarbital, its half-life is 90 hours. That is more than digoxin and aspirin, and approx double times of digoxin, making it the longest among all of the three. Okay. Next, let's move to next question. Which of the following drugs have the shortest half-life and requires frequent dosing? Among the following, which drug has shortest half-life? Half-life is less, and that's why we require it frequent dosing. Half-life less means this drug gets excreted out at faster rate. Its excretion is faster. So that's why we require it in frequent dosing. Is it option A, doxycycline, option B, digoxin, option C, digitoxin, or option D, that is penicillin G? Option number D is correct, penicillin G. Penicillin G has the shortest half-life, that is about 30 minutes. So as it is getting eliminated frequently, its concentration in systemic circulation gets reduced. To maintain its concentration in systemic circulation, we require frequent dosing. Let's move to next question. Question number 20. Question number 20, what it says? Which of the following drug combination is used as a hypertensive, antihypertensive? In hypertension, which of the following drug combination is given so as to act as an antihypertensive drug? Is it aspirin plus paracetamol, amlodipine plus atenolol, ephedrine plus theophylline, or option D, nitrous oxide plus halothane? Our correct option is option number B, amlodipine plus atenolol. Next, let's move to its explanation. Aspirin plus paracetamol. This combination has been used for analgesic or antipyretic action. Amlodipine plus atenolol. Amlodipine plus atenolol, we know that amlodipine is a calcium channel blocker. Amlodipine is a calcium channel blocker. Atenolol, this is a beta blocker, and when these two are combined, that this would help us in lowering the blood pressure. Because if calcium channel is blocked, contraction of the veins would get reduced. So that would get dilated. Its dilation means it would lower the blood pressure. Okay, so these two combination has been used to lower the blood pressure. Option number C, that is ephedrine plus theophylline. This is a bronchodilator. This is a bronchodilator that has been used as a bronchodilator but not as an antihypertensive drug. Option number D, that is nitrous oxide plus halothane. Nitrous oxide plus halothane. Nitrous oxide plus halothane has been used as a general anesthetic but not as an antihypertensive. Therefore, option number B is correct. Amlodipine plus atenolol. These two combination is used for reducing the blood pressure. These two combination has been used to reduce blood pressure. If the blood pressure gets reduced, it would automatically be used for a hypertension or as an antihypertensive drug. Antihypertensive drug. Okay, let's move to next question. Question number 21. Which drug combination is used in the management of diabetes? Among the following four options, you have to find out the best combination that has been used for the management of diabetes. Is it nitrous oxide plus halothane, ephedrine plus theophylline, glibenclamide plus metformin, or option number D, that is amlodipine plus atenolol? Correct option is option number C, that is glibenclamide plus metformin. I have also mentioned in last or previous question that nitrous oxide plus halothane has been used as a general anesthetic. Ephedrine plus theophylline is used as a bronchodilator. If it is used as a bronchodilator, it might be used for the diseases, for curing, for the treatment of asthma. Now, next option is glibenclamide plus metformin. This is the correct option that has been used to lower the blood glucose level. Glibenclamide, it is a sulfonylurea derivative and it increases the insulin release. If it increases the insulin release, if insulin release had been increased, glucose level in blood will decrease. Simultaneously, metformin, which is a which belongs to bigunide classification, it also reduces blood glucose level in liver. ठीक है, blood glucose level, it reduces the blood glucose level in liver by decreasing the glucose production in liver. Okay, now let's move to next question. Next question is question number 22. The combination of ephedrine plus theophylline is used in following condition. Is it a pain relief, bronchodilation, general anesthesia, or hypertension? I have mentioned in previous two questions that ephedrine plus theophylline has been used as a bronchodilator that can be used in the treatment of diseases like asthma or COPD. So students, kindly comment what is the full form of COPD. It is a respiratory disease, no doubt, but what is its full form? Okay, now let's move to next question. Question number 23. Which among the following drug is associated with phecomalia? Phecomalia. Which of the following drug is associated with phecomalia? Phecomalia is a limb malformations. So is it warfarin, thalidomide, phenytoin, or lithium? Option number B is correct. Thalidomide. We all know that thalidomide is responsible for severe limb malfunction. It has been historically known for its phecomalia. Okay, now let's move to next options like phenytoin. Phenytoin has been associated with cleft lymph or hypoplastic phalanges. Now, lithium. Lithium causes fetal goiter. Lithium will cause fetal goiter and cardiac abnormality, but not phecomalia. Now let's move to next question, that is question number 24. Which drug is known to cause neural tube defect such as spina bifida? Is it valproate, aspirin, tetracycline, or option number D, that is isotretinoin? So option number A is correct. That is valproate. What is the mechanism of action of valproate? This also part I want you all to comment in the comment section. What is the mechanism of action of valproate? Which channel does it blocks? So the drug that is known to cause neural tube defect is valproate. Valproate is strongly linked with spina bifida and other neural tube defect. Aspirin. What does aspirin cause? Aspirin causes premature closure of ductus arteriosus. Tetracycline. Tetracycline causes decoloration and deformation of teeth. It retards the bone growth. Okay, let's move to next question. Question number 25. Which of the following drug causes vaginal carcinoma in teenage female offspring? Which of the following option is correct? Option number B. Stilbosterol. Stilbosterol. Stilbosterol is associated with vaginal carcinoma in teenage female offspring. Next is carbamazepine. Carbamazepine, it causes neural tube defect. ACE inhibitor, it causes hyperplasia of organ and growth retardation. Also, phenytoin causes cleft lip and microcephaly. So what we have learned that in this chapter, what is it is important, you have to learn with what is the active, two things we have learned, what is the active drug and its active metabolite. This type of question usually appears in the examination. And second type is the drug and its associated side effect or what does it causes. Okay, now let's move to next question. Question number 26. Which of the following drug is also known as teratogen and can cause fetal alcohol syndrome? Which among the following drug is known as teratogen and it causes fetal alcohol syndrome? Is it anti-thyroid drug? Is it alcohol? Is it warfarin or is it endomethacin? So option number B is correct. That is alcohol. Alcohol is known as teratogenic and it causes fetal alcohol syndrome. In its syndrome, it has been mentioned fetal alcohol syndrome that would be caused due to alcohol. So let's move to its explanation. Antithyroid drug. Antithyroid drug causes fetal goiter and hypothyroidism. Alcohol, it causes major teratogenic effect and it leads to fetal alcohol syndrome. Next, warfarin. Warfarin causes depressed nose, eyes and hand defect. Endomethacin causes premature closure of ductus arteriosus. Now let's see what this question number 27 asks for. Which drug is associated with premature closure of ductus arteriosus in fetus? I have explained this 2 seconds before in previous question. Which of the drug is associated with premature closure of ductus arteriosus in fetus? Is it endomethacin, lithium, is it methotrexate or option number D, that is phenytoin? Option number A is correct, endomethacin. Endomethacin inhibits prostaglandin. Endomethacin inhibits prostaglandin and this results in premature closure of ductus arteriosus in fetus. So option number B, what it was, it's lithium. What does lithium cause? Lithium cause fetal goiter. Lithium cause fetal goiter and cardiac abnormality. Methotrexate causes cleft palate and hypocephalus. Next, phenytoin. Phenytoin, what it causes? Same, cleft palate or cleft lips and microcephaly. Now let's move to next question. Question number 28. What is a typical duration of preclinical study in new drug development? What is the duration of preclinical study in new drug development? So the average duration what we can consider is 2 to 4 years. Option number B. 6 to 1 year, too short for preclinical trial, because preclinical trial you have to screen various things, you have to find out the pharmacokinetic effect, toxic effect, these in animals. So for this much of study, we require more time. That is 4 year is enough. Now, let's move to next question. Question number 29, which is the last second question of this lecture. Question number 29, which phase of clinical trial is conducted after the drug is marketed? It is phase 1. Is it phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 or phase 4? Option number 4 is correct. That is phase 4. Now, what it is? Phase 1. It is a phase 1 to 3. This is before marketing clinical trials. Phase 1 basically focuses on safety and dosing in small groups. Phase 2 for efficiency and side effect. Phase 1 helps us to find out the safety and dose, and it has been conducted in small groups. Phase 2 has to be conducted in relatively larger group, and it focuses on finding out the efficiency and side effect of the drug. Phase 3 is conducted before market, and it is conducted to confirm the safety and effectiveness of the selected drug. And phase 4, this is the post-marketing surveillance which has been given to the public. This drug has been administered by the public worldwide, and its adverse effect has been noted after its long time intake or consumption. Let's move to last question of today's lecture. That is question number 30. What is the primary objective of phase 1 clinical trial? Evaluate drugs efficiency, determine long-term side effect, access, safety and dosage, compare the drug with existing treatment. So option number C is correct. Access, safety and doses. Phase 1 includes the healthy volunteer, and it has been included in the clinical trial to find out the safety and the dosage of the drug. So let's see its explanation. Option number A, evaluate drug efficiency. That has to be done in phase 1, phase 2, not in phase 1. Long-term side effect is evaluated in phase 3 and phase 4. Safety and dosage of the drug safety, metabolism, its optimal dose, these all things has to be found out in phase 1 clinical trial. Okay, this was the question. This was the 30 important question from the general pharmaceutics chapter, pharmacology chapter. So let us see some important things, like if you have not visited Pharmacy India mobile app, kindly visit Pharmacy India mobile app that you can download from Play Store. Through Play Store, you have to type Pharmacy India and you have to download that. This app consists of various test series. Some of the test series are free of cost. You can evaluate yourself through these test series, because all the test series consists of MCQs. Also, this app has a course section. Various courses have been provided through this app. So now let's move to next slide. Pharmacy India's website. Pharmacy India has its own website. That link is pharmacyindia.co.in. You can access here is get latest update, quiz, daily job updates, previous year paper, current affairs, subjective blogs and college details. Next, you can also join WhatsApp as well as Telegram with us. Pharmacy India has its own WhatsApp group and Telegram group for its students for providing them benefit. Through this WhatsApp and Telegram, what we do, we provide all the information, important information through these apps. The lecture of this PDF would be provided to you all through Telegram. Okay, you can join this Telegram through clicking on the link that has been provided in the description box. We have a special book for Tamil Nadu, MRB Tamil Nadu. This is the objective book. It consists of 5,000 plus MCQs, 25 model paper, 4 Tamil language eligibility paper, 4 previous year papers and 17 online tests as per paper pattern. So these things has been provided through this book. So I would recommend you to kindly visit and see this book. You can order this book through cash on delivery or clicking on the link given below. Next, one more book has been provided, that is MRB Tamil Nadu. This is a theory book which covers the various subjects such as pharmaceutics, pharmaceutical chemistry, pharmacognosy, pharmacology, biochemistry and clinical pathology, hospital and clinical pharmacy, pharmacy laws and ethics, community pharmacy and management, HAP, social pharmacy, pharmacotherapeutics. This book also you can order through Flipkart or click on the link given below. Another book provided by us is the Mission Pharmacist book. It is the highest selling book in India nowadays. This book also you can purchase through same procedures by visiting Flipkart or clicking on the link given below. Thank you so much everyone for attending today's lecture. Hope it would be beneficial for your preparation. All the best. Thank you so much.